Last but not least, our final inductee tonight. What did you say before? Hey. If I give you the point, you just do that, okay? Congratulations to all of our inductees tonight. This young man, I think, the best thing you can say about an athlete or a builder or a coach or somebody involved in sports is that you never, ever, ever forget where you come from. That's the most important thing. It's in your heart. It's in your soul. He's never forgot where he's come from because he's from here. He's one of the very best in the world. Represented Canada, represented this community. He is a barbarian. He is, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the hall,
Growing up in Maple, Ontario, Marco di Girolamo didn't have much early exposure to rugby. Like many local kids, he played hockey and soccer, but his grade 9 phys ed class included a rugby unit. Teacher Peter Renzetti, an Olympic bobsledder strength coach, was also a rugby player for the Toronto Barbarians. He spotted Marco's talent in PE class and suggested he try out for the Ontario rugby team. Marco made the Ontario under-15 team that year, and he was hooked on the game. He loved everything about rugby, the contact, the camaraderie, and the fair play that's integral to the game. Marco gave up hockey and soccer and threw himself headfirst into rugby. The next season, Marco won a spot with his nearest club, the Toronto Barbarians, which later merged with the Aurora Lions to become today's Aurora Barbarians. The club practiced close to Sunnybrook Hospital. Marco begged and borrowed rides to practices and games whenever he could. If he couldn't find a ride, he'd cycle to Toronto, adding a 50K bike ride to each practice or game. It was worth the extra effort to play with the Barbarians.
Marco was having a real challenge with his opposite player, who was 19, 3 years older. And I saw a couple of situations where, he could have been outplayed, outmaneuvered, but Marco's relentless. He figured out what this guy was going to do early in the game and had him covered. And then when he had the opportunity, he always did his best. He's a never say die player, always has been. And I noticed it from the first moment I saw him play.
Throughout his teens, Marco played for and captained many Ontario rep teams, as well as joining 3 Super League teams, Toronto Renegades, Manitoba Buffalo, and Victoria's Crimson Tide. This was the dawn of a new era for rugby in Canada. In 1995, rugby became a professional sport. However, Canada remained amateur and underfunded. Marco and his teammates took every chance they could to promote the sport and advocate for players. Ontario Rugby Hall of Fame member John Reich saw Marco play as a 16-year-old with the Barbarians, then watched with excitement as Marco rose through the ranks to become an elite world-class rugby player. In 1999, at age 22, as one of Canada's top players, Marco was invited to join Pacific Pride in Victoria, a training facility for the best under-23 players in Canada. Marco's 6 years in Victoria highlighted the challenges of a player in an underfunded sport. He shared a one-bedroom apartment with 2 other players, living on tuna and rice. Marco calls amateur sports in Canada a big ask. Despite being a world-class athlete, Marco, like others in similar sports, put his life on hold for several years to play for the love of the game, on a wage that couldn't come close to paying the bills. Coach Rick Farrelly became Marco's dad away from home, always there at the airport to pick him up and looking out for him in Victoria.
I met Marco, first time I met him was in Victoria, just prior to the Commonwealth Games in Manchester. And he was an identified athlete by the national program. I thought he was going to be a handful for the coaching staff. I did. He was very busy, extremely motivated, and showing a lot of qualities of being, potentially a really good leader at that point. And he's one of those guys who never backed down from a direction or anything like that. There were no half measures. When you were tackling practice, it was tackling practice. It didn't matter whether it was a tackling bag or one of his mates, you got tackled.
While with Pacific Pride, Marco was also representing Canada at games all around the world in the early 2000s. 2002 found him playing sevens for Canada at the Commonwealth Games. In 2003, he played 15s for Canada at the Rugby World Cup. Marco was named Canada's Player of the Year in 2004, and in 2005 he represented Canada playing sevens at the Rugby World Cup. In total, Marco represented Canada 34 times playing sevens and 21 times playing 15s. Many of those appearances saw him as team captain. Marco met many inspiring people through his years in rugby, including those interviewed for this video. He's been particularly influenced by coach Rick Sluggo Suggett. Sluggo, who tragically passed away in 2017, was an organ donor, giving others a priceless gift upon his death. Sluggo's gift inspired another young athlete he knew, hockey player Logan Boulet, to sign his donor card on his 21st birthday. Just weeks later, Logan was killed in the Humboldt Broncos bus crash. This selfless act, following Sluggo's example, encouraged another 100,000 Canadians to sign their organ donation cards. Rugby took Marco all around the world, playing tournaments in Dubai, South Africa, New Zealand, Hong Kong, China, Singapore, Malaysia, and France. Marco was playing among world-class elite rugby players, but he always chose to represent Canada abroad. There were offers to go pro internationally, but Marco loved being captain of his sevens team here in Canada.
He had an appetite and a thirst to be better. It just didn't stop in all the time that I was with him. He was just constantly looking for the next advantage, the next opportunity, and doing so in a level and calm and really focused way. And when you've got 30 or 40 guys, they're not all like that. But when you've got a guy like him and a few others, people like Tim Jackson, really focused guys that really epitomized the kind of player we were trying to develop and that we needed to win games for Canada.
Marco is a firm believer in giving back to the people that helped him along the way. While playing against some of the best players in the world, he continued to make time for his home club, playing for Aurora whenever he wasn't seconded to provincial or national teams. From 2006 to 2010, Marco led the Aurora Barbarians to 5 straight championship titles and 3 provincial cups in 2007, 2009, and 2010. Looking back on his career, Marco's proudest moment was the 2003 Rugby World Cup in Hong Kong. 32 teams were in the tournament from around the world. As Canada's sevens captain, Marco was playing in the largest rugby event in the world, winning in front of a crowd 10 times the size of a typical crowd in Canada. At every stage of his career and on every team, Marco's worked to make the game better. Steve Hall, former president of Aurora Barbarians Rugby, calls out Marco's continuing commitment to rugby locally, volunteering as coach of the Barbarians to this day. While he's known across Canada and internationally as a world-class rugby player, Marco's known locally for building one of the strongest rugby programs in Canada, right here in Aurora.
Marco, congratulations for your induction to the Hall of Fame. It's something that I've always felt was deserving and knew would come in time. I'm glad this is the time. You've been a great inspiration to our club, great dedicated player. Totally worthy of this. Congratulations.
I think it's a great honor. It's certainly overdue in my view. I'm just delighted about the wonderful person you've become, and I love your family, and I think that this is well deserved, and congratulations, buddy.
Hi, Marco. It's a real pleasure to participate in tonight with you, and congratulations on your induction into the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame. It's so well earned and deserved, and I know Ryan Addison is there with you.
Please join us in welcoming rugby star Marco Di Girolamo as an honored member of the Aurora Sports Hall of Fame.
Marco Di Girolamo. Congratulations. Sure. We're going to bring our sponsors up as well. Do the presentation of the sweater. Fits like a Barbarian jersey, perfect.
I had to write it down. God, I love rugby. Just wanted to start by congratulating my fellow inductees, Janice, the Nesbitt family, and Dave. Your stories are remarkable, inspirational, and this town is better for having you in it. Javid, Courtney, Guards, where's Guards? He was my sponsor there. Distinguished members of the Hall, and all the volunteers. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I am truly honored and I'm humbled by this experience. Believe. It's what I tell my kids all the time. 7 little letters that mean so much. A room filled with family, friends, and teammates who believed in this kid. There are 2 famous sayings about rugby players. You may have heard some of them. First one is God created beer to stop rugby players from taking over the world. Haven't seen some of my teammates in action. You know, there's a little bit of truth to that. The second saying, and it's not an exaggeration, is that rugby is a hooligan's game played by gentlemen. Rugby is a very much a tough and grueling sport. Nonetheless, we rugby players strive to be gentlemen, often while doing terrible things on the field to our opponents. Out of necessity, rugby fosters a certain rough and tumble mentality. So with that in mind, and being the gentleman that I am, I'm going to apologize in advance for some of what may follow. I played my first men's game when I was 16. I was probably $150, soaking wet. I remember I was scared. I bet my parents were scared for me too. They must have been wondering what the hell I got myself into. Also probably not the first time you thought that. But we're rolling up on this rugby pitch, and it looked like the local prison had just let the inmates out for exercise. You know, to my 16-year-old eyes, there was this field filled with these giant, grizzly, scary-looking men. When the funny thing is they're wearing these tiny little shorts. The size didn't matter to me, neither did my age. I never let the fear get the best of me. I held my own with those guys, and as the year went on, I got better. So they gave me this nickname, Super Kid. And there's some in this room still here that call me by that name today, even though I'm 45 and have kids of my own. As a parent only now can I understand the difficulty it must have been for my parents to see their youngest child play in this brutal sport with some of these barbarians. It's sure an underestimate to say I wasn't the easiest child. But my parents always believed in me, and it was through their love and support that I was given the opportunity to follow my rugby dreams. Mom and Dad, thank you for your belief and your support. To my brothers Dave and Mike, my sister Pat, growing up as the youngest of four, you guys taught me a lot of valuable life lessons. None more important than pain management. I mostly had to hide the pain. There's nothing more motivating than if you tell your mom, I'll give you something really to cry about. So I learned to internalize that pain and keep it, and it served me well. My brothers used to think they were pro wrestlers, so Saturdays they used to take turns jumping off the couch and elbow smashing me. You know, it did me well. It reminded me of playing against Fiji, you know. Saturdays at the Girolamo resident were a lot like a rugby game. High tackles, elbows to the face, and just sheer chaos. So Dave, Mike, and Pat, thank you for preparing me. I'm sure at the time it wasn't what you had in mind. They say soccer is 90 minutes of pretending you're hurt, and rugby is 80 minutes of pretending you're not. Might be hard to believe looking at my portrait out there that my nose did once occupy the center of my face. I've lost track how many times it's been broken. You know, one of the most memorable breaks I ever had was 2001. We're in Wales and we're playing in Cardiff, and we're actually playing the Welsh team. A couple minutes left in the game. I get the ball. I look up, there's one guy to beat. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to give him a Maori sidestep. And for the non-rugby guys and girls, I'm just going to take the ball and I'm going to try to run him right over. Well, as my old coach Clark used to say, there's no such thing as a bad decision, just poor execution. I'm losing this here. So bang, my nose, his head, my nose is gushing blood. Like it's pouring like Niagara Falls, blood, you know. So physio comes on the field, and you got like 10 seconds to either get it to stop bleeding or they're gonna pull you off the field. And so I just look at him and I have this look in my eyes like, no effing way I'm getting off this pitch. You know, if you know me, I'm not getting off that pitch until you're calling the ambulance and there's a stretcher there. So he digs deep in his bag and he pulls out 2 tampons. He rams them. He rams them up my nose. I look like this bloody walrus with these tampons hanging out of my nose. Guys never let me live it down. You know, who knew feminine hygiene products were so versatile? Oh, God. So it's a pretty emotional experience preparing for tonight. Looking through all my rugby mementos and digging through all of my memories, or at least the ones I can remember. There were a lot of foggy nights and dusty mornings. The trip down memory lane has brought more than one tear to my eye. I was fortunate enough to travel the globe playing the sport I loved. And playing in front of tens of thousands of people will always be a memory that I will never give up. You know, one of the best things was the World Cup against New Zealand. And we're standing at center field, you're arm in arm with your brothers, and you're lining up to listen to them sing the haka. And you know, that's their traditional Maori war dance. And it's such a amazing feeling as you're arm in arm with your brothers and you're about to embark on this battle. You know, nobody ever expects us to win. We were just, you know, rugby in Canada, you were a minnow when you played against the international teams. But it was a great feeling to be there and have experienced that, and I'm truly honored for that. It's amazing when I look back to see all the people that have been part of this journey. Some only for a short while, and some for more than 30 years. My high school gym teacher, Peter Renzetti, he's in the audience over there. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for putting me on this path. To my barbarian brothers and sisters, it's been one hell of a ride. To the old boys, Enzo, Bart, Brian, Drew, Big Bill, and Toomey, thank you. I just wanted to clear a couple things up, Mom. It was Billy that brought me to the tattoo parlor to get the barber's tattoo when I was 17. So, hey, left cheek for the backs, right cheek for the forwards. I will. It's a PG show later on. To my boys, Manny, Ollie, Brock, Resnick, Chown, Nielsen, Ivan, Jesse, Simon, Leighton, Johnny, thank you. We shared many a good battle on the field, and more than a few cold pops afterwards. Together we won 5 consecutive provincial champions and 3 McCormick Cups, and hoisting the McCormick Cup was probably the highlight of my career. To my fallen brother Ryan, man, I miss you. Thank you for convincing me to go to York. Going to York was like a catalyst in my rugby career. It's where I met John McMillan, and it's led me through the path of getting out to the West Coast and playing rugby. That was like the catalyst of everything that came after that. So Ryan, buddy, I know you're up there. I know a lot of guys in this room miss you too. JR, no words can express my gratitude for all you've done for me. Thank you for believing in me always and supporting me and our club. You took it upon yourself to ensure the successful future of our club by merging the Toronto Barbarians with the Aurora Rugby Football Club to create the Aurora Barbarians Rugby Football Club. It's been 20 years since you, Jack Heald, and Simon Allen gambled on a club merger. Your hard work and dedication gave the Barbarians a new home in Aurora, from which we could build and thrive as a club. Today, the Aurora Barbarians Rugby Club is the 2nd largest club in Ontario and top 5 in Canada. Aurora is a hotbed for rugby in this province, producing many of the current and former national team players. I'm just going to give a shout out to some rugby players. We have 3 women competing currently at the Women's World Cup. Tomorrow they'll take on France in the bronze medal game, so if you got some time, the game's on TSN. We also have Andrew Quatrin competing with the men's team in Belgium. He'll be competing tomorrow as well, so really good stuff coming from this club and from this town of Aurora. And we also have one of the strongest junior programs in the country. It's pretty remarkable that all these guys and girls are going out and representing Aurora on the world stage for such a small town. It's amazing. At risk of getting heckled by my old teammates, there's one thing that came from the formation of the club that's more important to me than all the accolades we had on the field. I met my wife, Pam. She was a rugby player for the Aurora women's team. If it wasn't for the merger, I never would have met my wife. So JR, you can add matchmaker to your list of accolades. 20 years ago, I was playing for Canada at Fletcher's Field. I came off the field after we beat the US in a World Cup qualifier. And out of the corner of my eye, I spotted the love of my life. Pam, I'm gonna set the record straight here. You picked me up. He traveled the world with me. He gave me the greatest gift in our 3 children. The ups and downs, the broken bones, the hospital visits, the heartbreaking losses, and the triumphant victories. You were always my biggest cheerleader and always by my side. Thank you. To my children, Roman, Ruby, and Rocco, always be the hardest worker in the room, especially when nobody's looking. Never give up. Chase your dreams. Always believe in yourselves. And remember, the door is always open, but the ride isn't free. Rugby has been my world, and through it I built my life. I'd like to share a poem with you that perfectly sums up this wonderful game. When the battle scars have faded and the truth becomes a lie. When the weakened smell of liniment could almost make you cry. When the last ruck's well behind you and the man who ran now walks. It doesn't matter who you are, the mirror sometimes talks. Have a good look, son. That melon's not so good. That snaz that takes a sharp turn sideways used to be dead straight. You're an advert for arthritis. You're a thoroughbred gone lame. And you ask yourself this question: why the hell did you play the game? Was there logic in the head knocks, in the corks and in the cuts? Or did common sense get pushed aside for manliness and guts? And do you sometimes sit and wonder how your time would often pass in a tangled mess of bodies with your head up someone's ass? With a thumb hooked gently up your nostril, scratching gently on your brain. With an overgrown Neanderthal, rejoicing in your pain. Mate, you must recall the jersey that was shredded into rags, then the soothing sting of Dettol on a back engraved with tags. Now it's almost worth admitting, although with some degree of shame, that your wife was right in asking why the hell you played the game. But then with every wound reopened, as you grimly reminisce it, comes the most compelling feeling yet. Christ, you bloody miss it. You see, from the first time you laced up your boots and tightened every stud, the virus known as rugby has been coursing through your blood. When you dreamt it, when you played it, all the rest took second fiddle. And now you're standing on the sidelines, but your heart's still in the middle. And no matter where you travel, you can take it as expected. There will always be a breed of people hopelessly infected. If there's a teammate, then you'll find them like a gravitational force, with a common understanding and a beer, or 3 of course. As you stand there telling lies, like it was yesterday's old friend, you know that if you had the chance, you'd do it all again. You see, that's the thing with rugby. It will always be the same. And that, my friends, I guarantee you, is why the hell we played the game. So before I go, I got one thing I just want to share with you guys. I promised my lawyer, Dan Resnick, I wouldn't sing any rugby songs today, but we have a tradition at the Barbs, when something good happens or we win a game, that we rejoice in song. So all my barbarian brothers and sisters, please stand.
want to take up rugby. I really want to take up rugby. Marco, I think you're an amazing electrician. Is that what you do now? Yeah. Why did you not join the UFC? Something a little safer, perhaps. You know, like to their teammates and your friends, the men and women, the barbarians. Congratulations. Welcome to the Aurora Sport